I want to talk to you about pumps in relation to our Grow Pocket towers. Now, it's a whole different game pumping water around an aquaponics system that's only 3 foot off the ground than it is to pump water to a tower that's 6 foot or maybe even 7 foot high off the ground where you've got to deliver the water from. So you need a pump that has got a good head to it. The term is head, H-E-A-D, a good head. Now, you might find a pump that has got good volume delivery, like this pump, for example. This is a good example of a pump that we'd call a high volume, low head pump. And it would deliver a lot of water, but not very high. So that's not going to be really suitable for our purposes. And this pump here, when I'm reading the back of it, it says it has a head of about 3 meters or 3 yards, 9 foot, for example, in feet. And that's not really going to be enough, because let me tell you something about head that you need to know. And that is, if you read the box when you buy the pump and it says it's got a head of 10 feet, for example, and this is a bit of a shock to a lot of people, that means that at 10 feet, there is no water coming out. It's not going to pump water up to 10 feet. It means at 10 feet, there is no water. And if it says you're going to get 500 gallons per hour, for example, out of the pump, the only place you'll get that 500 gallons per hour is right where the pump is, right where the water comes out of the pump. That's the only place. And then you'll have a chart which will show you, a graph that will show you at what height you'll get how many gallons per hour out of that pump, right up to 10 feet, because that's the example we're using. And at 10 feet, there's zero, there's nothing. So you need to bear that in mind. So when we're delivering water to our towers, we want to be able to get the right number of litres or gallons to those towers at that height, whatever it might be, at the top of our tower system. And we need to think about that fairly carefully. And we don't need to kid ourselves, because if we do, we're going to be very unhappy with the result. So let's assume that our towers, a typical tower we might build to, where a normal person can reach the last lettuce or green, whatever it is you've got planted in it. And then you've got a point above that where we're going to have our pipe work that's delivering our water into our tower. So that's the height we need to raise the number of gallons or litres per hour to that height to let it work its way around. Now let me show you the example of a really small pump. Now this would be one that you would use in a small home system, might only be 4 or 5 towers, for example. And this tells me on the label it has a head of 5 meters, which is around about 16 feet. But remember what I just told you? At 16 feet, that means there's no water. It doesn't mean to say we're going to get the water at 16 feet. So we need to look at our graph for this particular pump and find out how many gallons per hour we're going to get at the height that we're going to be running our water to. Now there's one other small limiting factor as well that comes in. Every time you run a pipe around a corner, you go through a right angle bend and you go through another right angle bend, and you might get really fancy with your plumbing and having it going in all kinds of directions. Every time you force the water to be turned around, that's more work that the pump has to do, and that can be added up as to being head, what we call head. So you might think you're going to get the right amount of water at that height. You've looked at the pump and you've worked out that you're going to get the right amount of water at that height. But alas, because of your fancy plumbing, it's still not going to get there. So what you think you need, you've worked out very carefully. I always ask people to add at least 25% of that capacity. It's better to have a pump that's over capacity than under capacity. There's nothing more disturbing than having a pump that is under capacity. And look at that great little pump. Now here at Green Life, the people have really gone to a lot of trouble. They've tested lots and lots of pumps, as I can tell you I have done back in Australia as well, looking for a pump that will run and go the distance and not fail on you. Because a lot of these pumps, people tend to get a bit lousy when they're buying a pump and they want to go for the cheap one. And the cheap one, 9 times out of 10, just won't go the distance. So my advice to you is buy your pump from Green Life. When you buy your pockets or towers, whatever, buy the pump from Green Life and make sure you get the one that you really need to have. Now let's have a look at another one. Here's another one that's a bit bigger. Now this pump here, let me look at the label, and it says it's got a head of 9 meters, which is 27, 28, close to 30 feet actually, 30 feet of head. Now that might sound absolutely fantastic. And it says to me it's going to deliver 20 litres a minute, which is 5 gallons a minute at that height. Now remember what we just went over. At 20 feet, I'm not going to get any water. So we look at our graph and we'll find out how much we're going to get. And we know that at 0, that's where it comes right out of the pump, right there, that's 0 point. That's where I'm going to have that particular water flow. So as we go up through the pipe, it's going to reduce off. Now, I'm sorry if you think I'm labouring the point, but we really want you to understand what head means and how you have to be so careful with the selection of your pump. So be smart. If you're in the USA, speak to the ladies at Green Life Aquaponics and make sure you get the right pump for your project. If you're in Australia, talk to me. We'll look after you.